Okay, I think we've started. So, my name is Andreja. My last name is Vražalić, but Andreja will do just fine. I'm from Belgrade.
Yeah, it's a tough one for English speakers. So I'm Barry Setzer, and I've met Andreja. Gosh, has it been like 3 years now? Something like that. So we've been working off and on various projects related to Yugoslavia, World War II, and I think we're reaching critical mass in all our projects here. So it seemed like a good time to maybe talk about things in general, since we've both been researching this for decades now, I guess.
Yeah.
You probably your entire life, me for about 15 years.
Listen, it would amaze you, but I'm not that young.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to guess. That's 32, right?
Yeah. Well, I thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You're like off by like 13 years, but I don't want to go into that subject anyways.
No. I'll tell you what would be a good place to start. So I'll have to tell you what got me started in all this research, by the way. So way back in 96, I think it was. Wasn't that when the last big war ended, like basically late 96, something like that, 95, I think?
Well, no, it was like in 99, but the war in Bosnia ended, I think, in 95.
Okay. So I had this, I was in the military back then, and we drew an assignment to get deployed to Tuzla, basically, to help whatever the treaty they signed. I don't know if it's a Camp David treaty or whatever it was.
So basically, that's over there, basically.
Yes.
When I'm pointing the finger. This is from I think Dayton Accords.
Yeah, Dayton Accords. Yeah, that's it. So we were like the first Americans to show up there, and here I am, just didn't know anything about the country, dropped in the country. It's like, oh, what is this? What's going on here? And we did our thing, gatekeeping, border guard, all that sort of stuff that you try and keep people from fighting each other. And then one time we had a mission that was local somewhere around Tuzla. I don't know exactly where, but I guess the locals found out that there were some Americans in town, and before I know it, there's like this long line of Bosnians that were all lined up to greet us and give us food and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I've never seen that before. They're actually happy to have us here. So ever since then, I kind of got it in my head. It's like, I don't really understand what's happening here. So I actually want to figure it out. And as you know all too well, the more you look, the more you find. And it turned out what I thought was going to be a really quick thing has turned out to 15 plus years still, and there's still a ton to learn. Still a ton. But, it fascinated me, and I'm a big history buff, so I like to check these things out, and that's what I did. And, we've met and start talking about it, and it's a cool subject that doesn't seem to get much coverage like anywhere. I don't hear anybody here ever talking about Yugoslavia, which, considering how many military situations I get myself into, big World War II buffs and gamers and stuff, I still, I played 1,000 Russian front games and probably 50 Bulge games, but nothing on Yugoslavia.
Well, honestly, when we talk about World War II, the Russian front is the NBA, equivalent. So, it's. I was amazed. I mean, when I started wargaming, like in the 90s, it was. I think the Russian front was still relatively unknown back then. I think more. Well, my memory, as I remember it, at least, more people knew about D-Day than Operation Bagration.
Oh,
a lot more. So
which is funny because Bagration pretty much settled the war, where D-Day was
exactly. Exactly. So in terms of, I mean, okay. Also for me, I for as long as I remember, I know about Serbia and World War I.
Oh yeah.
So so this was the big deal. And in terms of World War II, there was always something fishy going on about that story because I grew up in communist Yugoslavia. So, I was still like 10, 12 actually when the communism formally went away. Okay. So there was always something very strange about the story I heard about it, and I was never really enthusiastic about it. So basically, I veered off into reading a lot of Anglo literature about, but about general warfare. Napoleon, antique stuff. Played a lot of GMT. And I only got back to World War II in Yugoslavia some, let's say that's like in 2006. So that's, well, yes, that's still 18 years,
Yeah.
But it's not that this is a subject that I've been looking for into like 3 decades, only 2. And, it's how can I describe it? The story that I heard from school and a lot of the story that I see from the Western sources is like trying to paint it as some kind of a similarity to World War II, which is of course also painted as a crusade. And frankly, it's in Yugoslavia, definitely it's a lot more similar to the Game of Thrones.
Oh,
so
that's a really good analogy. Actually.
Yeah, so this is how you should approach it. Okay, so there are no actual good guys. There's some terrible guys.
Yeah,
but the situation is very convoluted, complex, and as you've noticed earlier, I do agree with that. I think a lot has to do with geography. So I think somebody mentioned that geography is destiny. So we'll go into it more if you want to. But when we open the map and see the map and see how the country is divided by mountains and rivers and things like that, things get to fall into place.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, basically, it's the paradigm you have in any situations where the conquering force thinks that they control a city, they control a country. So, it's more easy for them to scoot around the roads and hang out where there's buildings and stuff than it is to wander around the woods and try and root all these people out, which generally you're not going to do. Because
not in the Balkan region, no. It's almost a mission impossible. I mean, okay, somebody, some of the parties did try to root them out, with excessive violence, and ultimately were, not successful in World War I.
So was Serbia actually conquered in World War I? I think it was, right?
In World War II, I'm sorry, in World War II. In World War I, also Serbia was conquered, but there was also
really long fight, though. It was not easy for the Austro-Hungarians to take them out.
Oh, well, they actually didn't take Serbia out.
Oh, was it the Germans again?
Of course. They had to bring the big boys in. And also there were the Bulgarians helping, so it was like 2-1. Yeah, so but actually, how should I say it? When looking from that perspective, when you compare Yugoslavia in World War II and Serbia in World War I, Yugoslavia doesn't look very good, And in that comparison, that's one of my first takeouts and my first things that I managed to conclude when I started comparing them, because obviously when I was a kid there was a communist dictatorship, so everything was like Comrade Tito, communists are the best, and everything, and then you start slowly looking into what happened and comparing it. So I can say, for instance, that World War I generation is for Serbia the greatest generation. So it's basically they trashed 2 Austrian invasions.
Yeah.
The Germans, the Austrians, and the Bulgarians managed to push the Serbians out of Serbia, but they did not destroy the whole army. And the army recuperated in Greece with the help of the allies such as French, Italians, or the British.
Because I think they actually reinvaded, right, and made a little bit of progress.
Yes.
The war ended.
Yes, pretty much. Well, okay, I'm going to go, a little bit expensive here, but the Serbians broke through the Salonika front, and they managed to then push the Bulgarians out of the war. And when the front was breached, the British managed to go in the direction of Istanbul, and the Serbians liberated Serbia, and then went into the Yugoslav provinces of Austria-Hungary.
That really explains a lot of like the British fascination with Serbia in World War II, because from an American perspective, it didn't make any sense to me until I made that connection that you just made. It's like, oh yeah, because the British were all over here in World War I, so they have an affinity towards coming to this area in the first place.
Well, I think that this was one of the reasonings that the British policy or Churchill had when they tried to push Yugoslavia to come into the war on the Allied side, because that would be a potential repeat of the Salonika front from World War I.
I see.
Yeah, but also that would mean that much of Yugoslavia would be overrun, and that Yugoslavs need to accept this, on day one. We can discuss the British at length. There's a lot of things that I will say, but at this point, you can tell me. Do you want us to start with geography, or?
Yeah, we should start with geography, because it makes a lot more sense when you look at like the terrain of the area, because most people don't really understand that Yugoslavia is probably 60% hills, mountains, forests, I think.
Okay, give me just 1 second.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think I'll open this in Paint. I'm afraid the map is kind of terrible, but we have what we have, and we'll do what we can do. Okay, let me share the map. Okay, can you see it?
That's perfect. Yeah, actually, that's perfect.
Okay. So you know where Yugoslavia is. You can see. Here is now Slovenia. This is Croatia. This would be Bosnia-Herzegovina. This would be Serbia. This would be Macedonia, or Northern Macedonia, or whatever its name now is.
Right. Yeah,
this is Montenegro. So this would be the communist Yugoslavia republics, but this is basically where Yugoslavia is. And of course, as you know, as everyone can see, this part of the country, a lot of the country is mountainous.
Yeah.
So this part between the Adriatic Sea and the Pannonian Plain, it's all mountains. It's called the Dinara Mountains. And also the people living there are of a specific Dinaric type. So they're a bit taller than average, stronger than average, and a bit more what is the exact word? Choleric or prone to disagreement than average.
Argumentative, or just kind of. Well, we got the same sort of thing going on here now, but people just spoiling for a fight, really.
Yeah, let's use the word a bit more difficult.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So it's well, I can't say that it's fun to read German reports from World War II, but there's one report saying that these people in Western Serbia, which is more of the Dinaric type. They're difficult. They rise up in rebellions and everything, and they're terrible. And these people in the Morava Valley, which is lowlands, they're easier to go, to get along with.
Part of that has to do with the fact that I'm guessing that mountainous area probably doesn't have a lot of money resources, so they kind of feel the bite of things a lot more than the city folk would, because the city folk can probably get by, but just guessing, I don't really know.
Yeah, well, for instance, this would be a comparison. For instance, I'm assuming that you're relatively familiar with the basketball player Jokic.
Oh yeah, actually.
So, okay, he is sometimes prone to get angry, but he usually has a very laid back and very relaxed attitude. So this is something that is characteristic of people in the north of Yugoslavia.
Oh.
So people in the Pannonian Plain. So
okay.
The Pannonian, yeah, it's like completely flat. There's like basically not a hill anywhere in sight, and there are some forests, but more in Croatia, for instance. And basically, these people are relaxed, laid back.
Can you show me where Tuzla is on the map? I think it's like I think it's right near the border of Serbia and Bosnia. That's down there.
Oh wait. I'm making mistakes here, but I think that Tuzla is. I'm gonna make a mistake, but I'm here. I think Tuzla is over there.
Yeah, because that was kind of funny, because Tuzla itself is right on the edge of all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of see it when you're driving around Tuzla, just kind of the terrain in general. I actually took a trip to Sarajevo once while I was there, and I was really surprised that when you go from Tuzla to Sarajevo, terrain just changes completely. It's very flat once you get a certain distance outside of Tuzla. So yeah, you pretty much have like two completely different country types here, and you're telling me they have two different types of how the people behave as well in general. Because I guess
yeah.
No, go ahead.
This was the observation from the Germans for Serbia, because but I think that probably does have sense within wider Yugoslavia, because basically when you look at it, the Dinaric type is around the Dinara Mountains. So
okay,
let me just try this. So Dinara Mountains, they go from here basically. Right. This is so the Dinaric type is not very related to the north, but then again there's a lot of movement of people. There's a lot of emigration. There's a lot of changes. For instance, Serbia in the 19th century was relatively depopulated, and
really?
Covered in forests and everything. And a lot of people from the Dinaric area came to Serbia, to emigrate there, because Serbia was perhaps not formally liberated from the Turks, but informally, the Serbia was the first country in the Balkans that managed to, liberate itself.
So when was that? Was that after Napoleon? Well, I guess it would have had to have been after Napoleon. Probably.
Exactly. You're exactly correct, because there was essentially what happened is so let me just click here. Okay, so what happened was that Serbia basically, or the Smederevo region, or the Belgrade Pašaluk, what it's called. Mm-hmm. So this is just the inner Serbia, the part between the rivers of Drina, Sava, Dunav on the west and on the north. So this is inner Serbia, right. And it basically rebelled in 1804.
Oh, it was 1804. So that was pre-Austerlitz then.
Exactly.
It would have been what happened before Austerlitz. Okay.
Right before. And what happened is this rebellion went on for some 8 or 9 years, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And it actually had, I think, support from Austria was clandestine at best, but it did have support from Russia. because Russia back then was fighting the Turks.
Oh yeah.
One or two wars, I don't recall. And for instance,
they dozens of wars. They were always fighting.
But in that period, there were two, or one. I apologize if I'm quoting from memory. So, for instance, generals like Bagration or Kutuzov were actually active in Wallachia, which is Romania now, and it's next door to Serbia, and they were fighting the Turks. So
this is during the Napoleonic Wars, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, they didn't have enough fight with the French. They had to go fight the Turks too, huh?
Well, they fought the French in 1805 and 1812. So there was a big time gap between 1805, 1806 and 1807. But between 1808 and 1812, there was a gap.
Yeah, that's 4 years. Wow, you can get all sorts of fighting in there.
Yeah. So what happened was, the Serbs rebelled relatively successfully. They managed to repulse several Turkish attacks. And at one point, Russia also fought the Turks relatively independently. They were fighting in, what is now Romania.
Right.
And Russians were, of course, relatively successful. They had, for instance, Kutuzov there.
Oh, yeah.
So they did beat the Turks a couple of times.
Back in those days.
Yes.
A really good one.
Yeah. And they beat the Turks. And however, because Napoleon was attacking, they had to quickly make peace. And at that point, Serbia was without a protector.
So was this the first serious Serbian rebellion then, I guess? Because I know...
No, there were tons of...
author that you kind of grimaced at when I told you I read his book, Mitski? Who's that guy that wrote the book about the whole Balkan situation from like 1805 to 1990 or so? I can't remember his name. I know you kind of grimaced at me when I told you I read the whole thing, because I guess he's not really well thought of. Who's the guy that wrote, what's his name?
Noel Malcolm?
No, it's a Serbian writer. Can make me look it up. You know what? I may just look it up. Go ahead, continue. I'll get this name for you in a second here. Because I know this is kind of the book that really starts all these various conversations here. So
let me see if I can get any kind of a map here. But I think I left my old Serbian maps somewhere else. Anyways, the point being is that so what happened was that the Ottomans could concentrate on Serbia. They beat the rebellion back, but ultimately Napoleon lost, and in
Misha Glenny.
Yeah.
That's his name.
Well, I'm not gonna respond to that. I'm just just let it be. Let it slide there.
So let's talk about this for a minute, because this is actually a really funny point here. So when I first started reading this, I read a book that was about the British special operations in Yugoslavia. And since I kind of came into this with a sort of clear slate, didn't really know anything. Oh, these guys really did a lot of stuff here. So then I picked up another book. I don't remember what it was. It might have been a book about the Italians in Yugoslavia or something. And I read that book and I said, wait, are these two talking about the same subject? Because these look like completely different treatments of this. And then I read another book and it's like, this is different from the other two. What are you guys actually talking about here? So then I realized, yeah, everybody kind of has their own different spin. So what you kind of have to do if you're serious about this, you have to read a lot and then kind of come up with a narrative that makes sense to you from all the books that you've read. I've actually wound up reading probably 30 books on the subject by now. So, yeah, Misha, I guess, is probably, I have no comment either. It's probably okay just in general, but I would make sure that you read other things as well to kind of get a complete picture.
Yes, listen, it's very difficult, it can't be even condensed into, half an hour discussion. This is, you really need to, how can I say it? There's a lot of politics going on.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of factions here. Everybody has their own interests. Everybody wants to legitimize themselves. So it's going to be difficult. Everybody has an agenda. So, if you want to, you really have to, analyze a lot, and it's difficult, and the head hurts, of course.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Otherwise you can just, go with the simplistic, Serbs are evil, that's fine also, whatever suits your fancy. It's just that, if you really do want to know the situation, then, reading is mandatory.
There's no getting around that for this issue. You're not going to have a simple story. Anyway, all right, enough of that. So back to the Balkans Revolution, or the Serbian Revolution in 1804. I'm kind of wondering how they managed to have 1804 as like the time where it all kind of kicks off. Is this kind of like where the Turks had lost really super hard control of the area, and then the people that were living under the Turkish? Oh, it was probably a combination of the Turks slipping control and then the Austrians and Russians trying to destabilize it as well. So you wind up with a whole bunch of influences here that kind of get the Serbians to really kick off at this point.
Well, as far as the information that I have, this is more locally driven. Because what happened was, by that time, the central government in Istanbul was losing control. And, they had a lot of regional governors that were, semi-independent. So what happened was there was this group of local regional Dahie. So it's like, I don't know what the translation is from.
Probably warlords, something like that. Something along the lines of warlords or governors or something.
Yeah. Who knows? Like, you can use the daimios, like the daimyo of Japan, parallel, the big guys, the big wigs, but they controlled Serbia at that point. And they were acting semi-independently from the central authority. Okay, they were basically semi-rebellion, because I think that they killed a emissary from Constantinople.
Oof.
So what happened was
trouble.
Well, not necessarily. The Turks seemingly did not send an army against them. But what happened was that they were very oppressive towards the common folk.
Right.
And they were then, being afraid of a rebellion, started, that there will be a rebellion against them, and they wanted to go proactive and kill all the major Serb leaders.
So the funny thing about this particular conversation, this is still 140 years before World War II.
Yes.
So it seems like they have a very long history of just kind of ready to fight, ready to rebel, and it's just kind of like in the psyche before World War II even hits.
Of course, that's one of the reasons that we got hit by World War II, but it's not a good story always. But we'll get back to it. Yeah. Anyways, but so on the other hand, they were the rule was not very nice, honestly. It's the Ottoman rule is not fondly remembered here.
No, I think I guess the people have benefited from mainly, but that would have been a minority at best.
Yes. So basically, and I think, some of these Dahias actually were probably not Turks, but Serbs that were, took up Turkish names and, went over to Islam. I think at least one of them was a Serb. So anyways, the point being is that at that point, they started killing off Serb leaders, but they kind of messed up because they didn't kill the most talented one. So actually, it was basically a situation where you start killing people, and you miss out on killing Napoleon.
Right.
And I'm using the parallel very, very adequately because ultimately what happens is that he started leading the Serbs, and he first of all started trashing these local governors,
Right.
and beating them. And ultimately, the Serbs said, okay, now that we've destroyed the local governors, now we're going to rebel against the Ottoman Empire proper.
Oh.
And the Ottomans sent in 2 or 3 armies in the next year. And one of it was a Bosnian feudal army, which was beaten off at a place called Mishar. And the other was the Turkish main army, which was coming in from the Morava Valley, which is, highly important thing that we need to discuss later.
Yeah.
And it got beaten actually twice in Ivankovac and Deligrad, and I might, mixed up the battle names,
No,
I
it
might
doesn't
get
matter. The
gotten
bottom
wrong.
line is that the Serbian rebels beat the Turkish main army, and that's a big deal.
Yes. And what happened was, okay, this was like in 1804, 1806, in 1805, and already I think in 1806, I think that the first Russo-Turkish War began. So at that point, obviously, the pressure on the rebels, slackens, and the rebels go on to the offensive, but it's not successful.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot harder to do a real offense.
Yes, of course, it's more difficult. But just so you understand the Serbian mentality, so there was one prong of the offense which was going in the main direction of the city called Nish. And Nish is highly strategically important because it controls the road from Central Europe to Greece, and also from Central Europe to Constantinople.
Oh,
it's going to come in play afterwards in World War II, in a big way.
Oh, I should look that one up. Let me get a Google map of that one. That seems like really important here, because terrain is everything when you get outside of the plains. There, how do you spell that?
Nish.
Oh, that one. Okay, let's see what happens. New library. Oh, I need a map of Canada. Oh, that's not it. Right. Anyway, well, that's distracting.
Let me open.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Yeah, you probably know where it is better than I do.
Let me open it.
You got questions about San Diego, though, I could tell you stuff, but we're not talking about that.
Okay, let's see if we can. Okay, so let me share it so you can. Oh, well, darn, it's not visible. Oh, man, I don't know how to.
It's okay. You know what we can do? You just save it for next time. Just remember that we should probably have a map.
Okay.
Oh, you got it?
I got it. I can share it a bit. Okay. So can you see it? This.
Oh yeah. Okay. There it is. Well, I've seen
so
this city name before. This is an important city. Oh, I see. Like all the roads come together, like right there.
Yes. So basically, the north, the roads go from Novi Sad, Belgrade down here to Niš, and from there to Sofia, and all the way to Constantinople.
Oh, does it cross the Danube? Oh no, Danube's further north there. Okay.
The Danube is here with Belgrade and Novi Sad.
Right.
And also the road goes down to Thessaloniki, which is a major port here.
Oh, look at that! That's like a huge intersection of like everything right there.
Yes, okay. And there's a city called Tobruk here.
There is? Oh.
Yes, I can't seem to see it here. There you go. And there is Crete, which is German controlled.
Yep.
So, and there's somebody in Tobruk in 1942 who needs his supply. So this is, basically, of course, an auxiliary supply route for the Germans, but nevertheless a supply route.
So there was some truth to that, because I was reading somewhere where they were talking about this Yugoslavia campaign had effect on the war in Africa. And it's like, oh, okay, how's that happen? But yeah, I see, because if you're doing it right, it's a lot easier for the Germans to send stuff from Greek ports going past Crete, coming down, than it is to come the other way. Well, actually,
Well, there's no Malta there, so
yeah,
that's a plus.
right.
So you can Google Mihailović saved Cairo. It's like too much. It's of course not. It's not actually correct, but he did help. So this is one of the routes that needed interdiction, and of course later in 1944 this was a route for German withdrawal.
Oh,
so
it's the same route, isn't it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See, that explains a lot, because when you get into it, you realize somewhere in 44 the Germans are just really retreating a lot, and it kind of really helps to understand what the particular path was, because there's only so many ways you can go in the mountains of Yugoslavia. And
exactly,
because I think all the battles kind of go across the same routes all the time.
Yes. So basically, I will be showing you later the railway road, but there was a railway from Sarajevo to central Serbia, but it was cut by Mihailović in 1943. They destroyed the bridge, and I think this was actually the main British sabotage of the whole war, because the bridge was destroyed. The Serbs, the Chetniks, the loyalists, the Yugoslav army, whatever you call them.
Right.
They made a cordon around the bridge, but the actual demolition was done by a British major, British sapper engineer called Archie Jack, and he demolished the bridge.
That's interesting. So when the Germans withdrew in 44, they couldn't really go through Bosnia. They wound up going through Serbia, and probably, well, didn't there? Wasn't there last fights in Slovenia and Croatia, I think?
Yes, they ended up in Slovenia, but they did eventually go through the mountains of Bosnia, because by the time they were withdrawing, the Red Army came into Serbia.
Oh, right. Yeah, the Red Army was in Romania and about ready to slam into Serbia. Oh, boy.
And from Bulgaria also. So, that road was cut. And afterwards, they left over Tito in control of Serbia. So obviously, you can't just push him back. He had by that time sufficient troops.
Right.
So, and also Budapest was by then probably, there was a siege of Budapest or Battle of Budapest. But
that was huge. 44, 45, like right at the end of 44, beginning of 45. Oh, wow, that's right. So basically, if Budapest falls, you're stuck in Yugoslavia. So these guys are really trying to beat feet out of there before the Reds just blow them all up.
So basically, when you look at Yugoslavia here, so you have this is the inner Serbia, this region where Nish is, and this is prime real estate for strategic purposes, and of course you have the Dalmatian coast, which is also prime real estate, because obviously you have the coast there. But for the purposes of for instance, an Allied landing, this is not a great country.
No.
This is not a great country, and we'll be discussing further, because this was kept by the Italians, and everybody trashes the Italians because they didn't keep good order in their occupation zone. But of course, they're not the Germans. But on the other hand, they had the worst territory to control, because this was, the Dinaric Mountains, which is, filled with, huge mountains, difficult people and bears.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I just looked at that, because there's not really any place that's flat like what the German territory is. So anytime you have a lot of hills and mountains, you're just asking for trouble. And then, of course, the issue that the Allies probably had naval control of the Adriatic, so they could pretty much just run ships up and down there to do stuff as well, just making their miserable situation even worse. Oh, boy.
Well, that's, it's a lot of it has to do with geography. So, but when you talk about it from my side, there are two prime things that you need to look at when you look at strategic importance. This would be, Serbia, and this would be the inner Serbia part, and the Dalmatia part, which is the coastline.
Oh, interesting.
Other regions are important. Obviously Slovenia is important because it's, next door to the Reich, and also a lot of Slovenia was actually annexed by the Germans.
That's what I thought. They actually was kind of like a little satellite state there.
Oh, no. Slovenia was occupied.
Oh, it was occupied?
Yeah.
Did they occupy Croatia at some point or not?
Well, they did. Well, of course, they occupied it, but I wouldn't exactly call it occupation.
Yeah, because they were actually trying to stand up a whole government and a military there, and I don't know how successful that was.
Okay. Let's go. Okay, then into the map of how they divvied up the country.
Oh, you have that. Oh, that's.
Oh, of course. It's
Yeah.
It is important. Let me just find the appropriate map here, which has the division part. Well, actually, there are two maps. So what we can do. We can open both of them. So, okay. So let me share then the map. So this is the map of the occupation zones. Okay. So essentially, the brown color is the occupation zone of Italy.
Oh, wow.
And as you remember, these are mostly mountains here.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the coastline and the mountains, and it's not, it's very difficult country to control.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and so for the other occupation zones, so this is okay, so the light brown, or I don't know what the appropriate color is. This is occupied by Germany.
Kind of peach, but all right.
Yeah, sure.
Peach, something like that.
Yeah. So this would be Slovenia occupied by Germany and Serbia occupied by Germany. So Serbia was under military rule. And also, I think that Slovenia, or that part of Slovenia, was annexed directly. So there's a part occupied by Hungary, occupied by Bulgaria, and there is Croatia, which is a German ally. This is not technically a correct map of Croatia as a German ally, but in a nutshell, but more factually, it actually is more correct, because Italians basically kicked the Croatian units out from their occupation zone. And there were not good relations between, Croatia and Italy. So this. Okay. So let me share the other map, which is the formal occupation. Okay. So this.
Oh, what the heck?
So this is the big one is the independent state of Croatia.
Oh. Okay.
So this would be the Axis political, more of a politically correct map in terms of the Axis situation. So Slovenia was mostly annexed by Germany and partially by Italy. Italy took over some islands and parts of the coast.
Right.
Hungary annexed its part. Bulgaria annexed its part. Also, some part was annexed to Albania. And there is yes, yeah, and also there was a Montenegro as a protectorate state, and Serbia was under the military commander. There you have Nish there. You can see him.
Yeah, so Italy actually has a lot of responsibility here.
Well, that they wanted to, so they wanted to have even more of the responsibility to take over more of the Croatia puppet state. So
yeah, funny how that works.
Yeah, well, honestly, for instance, when you look at Italy, originally, the leaders of the independent state of Croatia, which is the Axis Croatia, were Italian allies called the Ustaše.
Oh,
And,
they were Italian. Oh, right, because they came from Italy, didn't they?
well,
Oh,
they are,
yeah.
they're Croatian ultranationalists, and they ran to Italy
Yeah.
when they started to work against Yugoslavia.
I'd forgotten about that, Andrea. You're right, because they had their formative years kind of doing their thing in Italy. And then when the war kind of broke out, well, I mean, it's kind of like Karl Marx going from Germany to Russia. So the Stasi or Stas, how do you pronounce that?
Well, I would pronounce it Ustaše, but I don't
Ustaše.
think it will work. Ustaše, it's a Serbo-Croatian word. It's not supposed to be pronounced easily. It's supposed to be difficult. We pride ourselves on it. Okay, it's actually it's a Serbian word originally, but they simply took it over, and it's now connected to the Axis, Croatia now. In general parlance.
I forgot that they started in Italy. So actually, in theory, there would have been a little bit of alliance between Croatia and Italy, although I'm sure it wasn't really much of an alliance in reality. But so they would actually, would you say they have more sympathy with Italy than with Germany?
Who?
Ustaše.
Well, it simply, it varied, because back then, when the Ustaše were in open rebellion, and that was, I think, 1930 or 31,
Right.
only Italy was an option in terms of their ideology. Germany was back then, under the Weimar Republic. So they went over to Italy, and also there's also the other factor is that Italy. It's a little bit convoluted here, but hear me out.
Sure.
Italy had plans on the Dalmatian coast, because the Dalmatian coast was originally owned by Venice. It was their territory, and Italy wanted to take over this territory. There were a lot of Italians in the Dalmatian coast. So Italy had designs on this, and when Yugoslavia was formed, at that point, Croats were pro-Yugoslavian, because this means that the Serbian army would come in and kick out the Italians from Dalmatia. However, that means that instead of an ally, Yugoslavia, well, the Serbs and then Yugoslavia got an enemy from Italy. Like the Italy was a World War I ally, and actually a very good ally, because it actually, when the Serbian army was needed to be rescued from Albania, Italian Navy mostly did it.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, however, that now that there was Yugoslavia and Serbian army was on the Dalmatian coast, the Italian good mood evaporated, and they went all anti-Yugoslavia. What even further happened is that Italy under Mussolini helped the Ustaše and some Bulgarians from Macedonia to kill the strongmen of Yugoslavia.
Oh, right.
This is since you're familiar with Tito, this is the Tito before Tito.
Yeah, I forgot about that, because they killed this guy off in the mid-30s, I think.
Yes, exactly. So he was, his name was King Alexander, and actually he was a very important French ally. And he kept the how should I say, the Little Entente or the Balkan Alliance from any designs by Italy or Germany.
So this was post-World War I, pre-World War II.
Exactly. In 1934. Now this guy was a strong man, so he even instituted the dictatorship in Yugoslavia, because there were the Serbo-Croatian divide was already wrecking the country, and
funny how that works.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, when you look back, that Yugoslavia was never a functional state. It's
Not really.
no, some people now, it's like honestly, some people now go even into such detail as to start trashing King Alexander or Tito to say who made the worst Yugoslavia.
I mean, you could pick a whole pantheon of people if you want, because it's a long, ongoing thing. I mean, until all the different parties agree that we should all work together, it's always going to be dysfunctional.
Yes, I mean it's a difficult subject. I mean, I guess it could have been assumed that Yugoslavia would not be functioning already at the beginning, but honestly, I think that definitely as a result of World War II, Yugoslavia was dead. It was never going to happen, and we're going to discuss who the actual victor of World War II is. But we're going to do it at a later stage.
That's a little further down the road. And actually, I think we've been at this an hour because I got to go run an errand here. Should we try and shoot for Saturdays for this? Because today was just weird. I'm off today, so I had all day to work on this. So if we
let's just wrap it up. I think that.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's just then wrap it up because I think that we probably lost everybody by this time. But I hope.
Well, this is an experiment right now. We're just trying to figure out how this is going to work. I think at some point we'll go back and probably
redo it. Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably do like half-hour segments on specific things. But I mean, just the hour we talked, I could see. Oh my gosh, there's like a zillion things we could talk about.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's I said it, it's, I think that you sent somebody sometime a meme, like this, big pile of papers and documents, and it's like history of the Balkans abbreviated.
That's not even doing it justice. So I read Misha's book, and then, I can't find this other one, but there's another guy who wrote like a 3-volume history on World War II from the Serbian perspective alone, and I actually read most of those books. I thought, wow, this is still just the tip of the iceberg. There's still like so much more you could do here, because this doesn't talk about any of the German stuff, doesn't talk about any of Tito's stuff, which of course, Tito's kind of, I hate to say it, he's probably like the central character of this whole thing here, really, but yeah. All right,
we will be discussing this, later on. I know your opinion, but we'll discuss this further. Don't worry. He is the central character of the most of the Western narratives, but we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I'm not sure he was the guy they should have leaned on, but that's a different topic already.
Yeah, it's there's reason why they picked him. But we'll go into further discussion. As I said, this is like the Game of Thrones parallel. Really,
that is a really good analogy, because that is almost perfectly captures the whole essence. Game of Thrones. We got to come with a name for just the Game of the Balkans. There's a snappy title, but yeah, that's what this really is. It's Game of Thrones. Well, there's no dragons. Well, I guess maybe the Germans are the dragons.
Well, listen, there's the Allied Air Force.
Oh, right. Were they bombing stuff in Yugoslavia?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's
they bombed.
Whole topic by itself.
Yeah, and the Dragon's parallel, when you come to it, the Dragon's parallel on the Allied Air Force is very telling. Okay, but. So I won't go into more details right now.
I'll tell you an interesting story. I may have to put this together. So there's a big Air Force base that's outside of Phoenix. Well, actually, Air Force Museum. And we went there a couple of years ago just to kind of see what it's all about. They had a huge section on Operation Halyard there. I was like, what the heck is this? And it was like a whole bunch of displays and things about it. It's like, oh, this is quite an interesting dive here. I have a bunch of pictures, so not to put them all together and send them to you at some point, but they're really focused on the Yugoslavian air mission. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. You don't see that very often here.
Well, this is also a subject. This is actually not one of the subjects that I would pick as most interesting, honestly. Because for me, it's, obviously I have a completely different perspective because I'm here a local. But of course, I understand why the Americans would find it interesting because they're airmen,
I mean, realistically, I'm not sure it had a really big impact on things in general, but it's still kind of cool that they set all this up at this museum. I mean,
okay,
anyway, another topic.